Hi, everyone. My name is Vasilios, and I'm an instructor with the St. John of Damascus Orthodox Educational Initiative. And I also do other kind of smaller, various administrative tasks for the initiative. And I'm here this evening with Father John Summers, who's the headmaster of the initiative and who has put so much time and so much effort into getting this initiative off the ground and running it. And now, in the midst of this, in this strange medical situation that the world is enmeshed in, we thought it would be good to sit down and talk about some of the new things that are happening with the initiative and that are due to this, strange situation that we're in. So, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask Father John some questions, and just give him a chance to update everyone and share his thoughts with anybody who is watching and listening. So, Father John, how are you? Can you hear me okay?
Good. Yes, absolutely. How are you doing, Vasily?
I'm doing good. Thank God. It's a strange time, but we're carrying on.
Yes, indeed.
Just doing our crosses and charging, as you like to say.
Yes, absolutely.
That's right. Yeah, making our cross and charge and charging. So, how is everything going generally with the initiative? How are things?
Well, glory be to God. We started last August, and at this point, we've had over 100 signups, or close to 100 signups in our different classes, both for kids and adults. At present, we have 62 students enrolled. Again, both in adult and youth classes. And we consider both of those exceptionally important because, of course, the first place the child really learns is at home. And so when they see their mother or their father taking a class and reading and doing spiritual reading and so forth, it inspires the child to do that themselves. And so we consider our mission to be two-pronged in that respect. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I can just attest to this, because I've taken, as an adult, 2 classes with the initiative, and I myself personally can really, and my wife, Serafima, we've both been in 2 of your classes, and we can both see the benefit very clearly of being better educated and learning about things from an Orthodox perspective.
No, thank God.
Yeah. Why do you think that's important, Father? Just briefly, why do you think it's important to learn subjects that are often taught from a secular perspective, or what they call a secular perspective, or what they call a neutral perspective, from an Orthodox Christian perspective? Why? What's the big difference, and how big is the difference?
We have a saying in the initiative, which is that there's no such thing as ideologically neutral education. And the thing that really I think drives that home is 2 things. First, just how an educator spends their time and what they spend their time on, right? And that relates to focus, because obviously in any class, in life itself, we have a limited amount of time. So the way that we choose to spend our time, and what we, as teachers, what we choose to spend our time on, bears on the question of what we deem important, right?
Yeah.
So the first premise then is that we really don't believe in the initiative that there's any such thing as ideologically neutral education. The second part, though, is that even when someone tries to do that, what you'll notice is that the children's textbooks tend to be very bland. They're not very engaging. I've been a teacher for years, in addition to being a clergyman, and I don't like reading children's textbooks. I do like reading the textbooks we've used in our program, but I don't like reading the ones that are generally used in public schools and some private schools even, because in the attempt to be so neutral, it becomes inert. And so then we often wonder as teachers, and you're in the educational field yourself, so you understand this. We often wonder, how do we get the kid engaged, right? Well, we have to show them what's important.
Mm.
But the moment we start showing them what's important, it's either going to be conducive to orthodoxy or not conducive to orthodoxy, right? So that, and hence, that's why the initiative has taken on both catechetical classes, theological classes of theological focus, and also more run-of-the-mill conventional classes like history, or now you're teaching our composition course, so that the truth that is found in the church can be tied in to a framework in every class for the student, so they can make sense of the world through Orthodox eyes and not somebody else.
Right. So the classes are not only the classes from an Orthodox Christian perspective are not only ideologically true with a capital T, but they're also just more engaging to the student. And yeah.
You know, our one of the reasons we chose him was because if you read his works.
Sorry, you cut out for a second there. Chose who?
It's all those people watching Netflix and playing Counter-Strike on the internet, right?
The bandwidth, yeah.
Oh yeah, the bandwidth's been affected, unfortunately, by everybody being at home. St. John of Damascus.
Oh, right.
Right. They had a very cohesive, organic approach to learning. So for someone like St. Photius the Great or St. John of Damascus, while they distinguished between natural and spiritual wisdom, and while they didn't fall into the error of the scholastics, where they tried to rationalize everything, they certainly did not reject secular learning, and they tried to see everything through the eyes of the church, so that everything can become edifying, right? The more that we are edified, the more that we're nourished, the better Orthodox Christians will be. So when we begin to look at both natural and spiritual wisdom through the eyes of the church, we're nourished thereby, and that's very important for our youth.
Yes.
And for our adults. Yes.
And I've been in and I've worked in the classical Christian system, and it's all and that in itself can be edifying. Imagine how much more edifying is it to not have just a generic quote unquote Christian perspective, but to actually have the truth, to actually have the Orthodox Christian perspective. How much more edifying it can be for our young people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, you know, we just recently had Orthodox Sunday, and we read the anathema against ecumenism. And we say to those who attack the Church of Christ by saying that there are so-called branches, the attempt to embrace a generic or mere Christianity in our educational programs, unfortunately, it's better perhaps than the anti-Christian, almost Soviet education that people are unfortunately getting in a lot of public schools. But it still tends toward ecumenism.
Right. Oh, most definitely. Yeah. It's a wonderful thing. So we've got the initiative now. It got off the ground last fall. We've had over 100 students enroll in all of the classes from when it started in the fall to this point. Glory to God. And then all of a sudden we're hit with this strange global crisis, and all of the schools are shut down. The children are at home. Most of the parents are at home. Parents who are not working non-essential jobs, they're at home. And we have this little fledgling school. What can we do? How is the initiative responding to this? What can the initiative do in response to this pandemic, to this current situation?
Well, some days ago we saw the encyclical from the bishops, and we saw how they called everybody not to, waste their time, called on everyone to not waste their time surfing the internet and being transfixed by the news and watching Netflix, or if you're a teenager playing some sort of multiplayer video game or something like this all day. Right?
I've heard of those.
Yes. And so, it's very important that we in the initiative feel that it's very important that we respond to this need. We have a lot of our youth out of school now. And so we're looking to roll out a new set of classes that are short, most of which will be short for students because it's not quite clear how long students will be out of school, to assist parents who are not used to, say, homeschooling or having their kids in the initiative, to assist parents in dealing with the problems associated with having the children out of school and having really nothing to do. And of course, a lot of parents are having to continue trying to work remotely from home in this context.
Right.
So to be clear, to sign up for one of these courses, the parent doesn't have to feel like they're signing up to have their kid in the initiative in perpetuity, right? It's not, we're not looking to bind anybody. We're not looking to really change what they do on a continuing basis. We're really just looking to help. And so we're bringing on some more teachers, and we'll be starting some new classes, some classes in grammar, several different math classes for different levels. We have a certified math teacher that we're bringing on board to do that. All of our classes, I should stress, whether in this new program or the program we usually do, all of the classes are taught by people who have the requisite academic background to teach what they're teaching. And we consider that very important. A lot of times in private schools, corners get cut with respect to that. And I understand how that happens from a practical point of view, but we're very committed to excellence in the classes. So we're looking on that count. We're looking for volunteers to teach. We have a couple of teachers already slated to start the week after next. Of course, you're one of them. The week after next, with the classes we'll be rolling out, we're looking for volunteers to help with administrative work. And because with all of the youth that we had in the first semester, by God's grace, we retained for our second semester, and we increased the number of offerings for those students. And so they're in more classes. So we really need more help with the various administrative tasks. But I do want to make a distinction, and I'm sorry to throw all this at you at once. And
go ahead.
For me, I know that in California it's still kind of early, but for me, when I get tired, sometimes I say too many things at once.
So you only have 8 children and are teaching 8 classes, Father? I mean,
and
you're teaching as many classes as you have children, it seems.
So with our teachers, we do compensate our teachers. And when Metropolitan Moses originally started this initiative, as you know, in the metropolis of Toronto, and then brought under the auspices of the Eparchial Synod. And but the reason Metropolitan Moses was very committed to compensation for the teachers as opposed to a volunteer method. So I'd want to clarify, because I said volunteer, I really meant step forward for the teachers. Because we do a lot of things in the church on a volunteer basis. We run camps that way. We do the youth conference that way. And everybody who's been involved in that knows the pattern. There's a preparation period. It's very tiring and energetic and engaging. You have whatever you're doing, whether it's St. Xenia's or it's the youth conference, and it's terrific. And then everybody falls down dead, tired.
Yes, very true. Personal experience. Yes.
Right. So with the initiative, we're doing something different, because we're trying to, on the one hand, make sure that we have teachers that meet the professional standards of what we're trying to offer in terms of our classes. And on the other hand, they need to provide for their families. We can't use a volunteer model. So the majority of the income, the revenue that we bring in, goes to our teachers, because we believe that you don't muzzle the ox that treadeth out the corn, like St. Paul says. And if we want to have a continuing program, we compensate. We need to compensate the teachers. So when I said volunteer with respect to the teachers, what I really meant was step forward. We insist upon compensating the teachers. We don't pay, millions of dollars. No one's going to get rich doing this, but we do compensate the teachers. With respect to administrative help, that we have to do, unfortunately, on a volunteer basis at this point, because we, my wife and I share a lot of the administrative help, and your wife is now helping us with administrative help. But it multiplies outward. the more people that you bring on. So we do need
Sure.
volunteer for that as well.
Yeah,
I did a lot.
absolutely.
I'll stop for a second.
No, that's great. No, I was going to ask about a few things. You've got these classes being rolled out. You mentioned that they're going to be shorter classes than the usual offering. So the usual offering is usually between 10 and 12 weeks for the usual the longevity of those classes is around, for a full class, about 12 weeks. These are going to be more 4 to 6 week classes, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
These will be more 4 to 6 week classes. And enrolling in one of these classes is not going to be any sort of long-term binding situation. I mean, it'll be sort of an a la carte type situation,
Right.
where a parent can see what would be good for their child, see what their kid needs, and be able to choose and from them, because there's all kinds of online options being offered now, if not necessarily from the schools. And what better than to have these offerings from an Orthodox Christian, from a traditional Orthodox Christian perspective.
Yes.
Yeah, great. And yeah,
Go ahead.
but you also said, okay, so because we're so small, because we're a startup, as it were,
Right.
and why. And you did mention that we need we would like people to step forward to both help administratively, which would be on a volunteer basis, but to also teach these classes, which would be on a compensated basis, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. But we're a startup, though. So we're a very small community of believers, serving a slightly bigger community of believers, but still small. We're just getting our feet off the ground. Why dive in to help this situation? Why do you think it's important to jump in and help this situation? While our fawn legs are still relatively wobbly.
Well, I think that the answer to that question is that, well, there's several answers to that question. The first answer, I think, to that question is that our initiative is the only program working under our church that serves the educational needs of two groups that can't get anywhere else. First, students that are in elementary, middle school, or high school, so primary or secondary students. I'm not aware of any other program like that in our church. And secondly, adults who are looking for enrichment-based classes. I mean, thank God we have our seminary now up in the Northwest,
Mm-hmm.
in Etna, and glory be to God for that. But what we're offering is different. It's for a group of people who are not looking to go to seminary, with respect to the adults. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they will, but they're probably married. Most of the adults are they're married
At this point. But who knows what light bulbs might light up because of these classes. And I will say, light bulbs have lit up because of these classes for adults as well. So so continue.
And then with the youth, like I say, the general perception over the last several months is that we certainly have a lot of homeschoolers, and people have gotten the impression that we exist only to help homeschoolers, and that isn't true. Certainly, homeschoolers are attracted to our program for obvious reasons, right? Because I've homeschooled for years with my children, my students, and my children,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very difficult to manage homeschooling, right? And so often what homeschooling parents look for is greater structure, and we offer them that. So then they're attracted to what we offer. But what we are looking to do is help anyone we can, where we can, in our church with their educational needs. And since people had reached out to me and mentioned this problem, and we observed the problem in the news and when people were talking to, I thought, well, what better time to bring on teachers, some more teachers to fill the gaps, as it were. And one more point about that, which is this. It is exceptionally important to cultivate for the church to cultivate teachers and students who are aware of learning as a need. Because if we don't, we have a lot of teachers, I know personally, a lot of teachers who are Orthodox who work in the public schools. I myself used to be one. And there's a tremendous amount of pressure to play the game, as it were. And what it creates is a sort of angst and a sort of tension between what you'd prefer to do and what your job calls you to do. But as society becomes increasingly anti-Christian, and when I say that, I don't mean that we live the Antichrist is around. I'm not waxing Hal Lindsey on you, right? But as society becomes increasingly anti-Christian, we have to start making proactive choices about our church supporting educational endeavors and giving Orthodox teachers a place to do what they can so that our youth can be educated in that fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I think it's a very, it's almost vital. It may in fact be vital to offer that. And it's not only in the public school system as well, like even in the, like in the so that is where the issues with this anti-Christian ideology are most inherent. But the issues also exist in not only in secular private schools, but also in the so-called Christian private schools as well. So it's a widespread problem, and that difference, the difference between what you want to be teaching or how you want to be teaching, and that playing the game, as you mentioned, is so widespread in both the public, private, and parochial school systems, that it's even more vital. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I myself have felt that while teaching, not only in public schools, but in private schools as well.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so these classes, these new offerings from the initiative, they're great for families that are blessed enough financially to be able to choose them. Are there any programs available for those families who think this is a great idea, who would love for their children to be in an initiative class, especially one of these shorter classes, but just don't currently have the financial means to do it? Because as we both mentioned early on, there's a lot of parents who are getting hit by this strange situation as well. Do we, as an initiative, have any options or resources for them?
Yes, and I'd like to speak to that in two ways. First, we already have a scholarship fund. We have several scholarship students who receive substantial financial aid from the initiative that donors contribute to in order to benefit these students. We would like to offer aid for these classes as well. If we had an endowment, we would just offer them merely for free, or for free, depending on how big the endowment was. So what we're looking to do is raise more money to add to our scholarship fund to at least defray the cost as much as possible. So when you look at the website, you'll see the price for the class. If you can afford to do that as a parent or a grandparent, or an interested grandparent, please do so, because it helps us to support our teachers, to support our students. It helps the initiative to be able to offer these sorts of vital classes. But if you can't afford it, please do not hesitate to contact us. We're actively trying and looking for contributions from people to help defray this new program, if you will, to assist with students who are home from the coronavirus epidemic. I suppose it's a pandemic now. Mm-hmm. So things are changing so greatly. It's like it's minute by minute. So let me say that more briefly, right? So the courses have a cost associated with them, and you'll see that on the website. Again, if a parent can afford that, please do pay for it so that you can help the class run. We do need at least 5 kids in a given class to run it in an effective way. Secondly, though, if you can give, if folks can give, maybe they somehow, they have extra money set aside or whatever, or they're interested in supporting our youth, whatever the case, almsgiving, of course, is a very blessed thing. And if you give, we are going to defray the costs and divide that over the number of non-paying students. And that brings me to my third point, which to reiterate, if you're a parent who is interested in this, but you don't have the money, please contact us and we will add your child to the list and then try to accommodate them financially. I can't promise that we will. And that really relies on our viewers to give money, to contribute, to help those parents who can't afford it. I hope is that clear? Or?
Yes, it is. So if there's anybody who's able to financially support the initiative and and this new mission to offer classes during this COVID-19 epidemic, please we'll provide some links where you'll be able, that'll go along with the video, that'll show you where you can do so. And God willing, through the generosity of these Orthodox Christians in our diocese, we'll be able to, those contributions will be added to a scholarship fund. And if parents, if families, if grandparents, if godparents are able to pay for the classes, they should. But if they're not able, they should contact us right. They should not be afraid. They should not hesitate to contact us right away. And based on the generosity of those who give, we may be able to defray the cost either to some extent or completely going forward. Is that kind of a good summary? Kind of a summary. Yeah.
And if we end up having, extra money, that because of the way funds come in relative to these classes, that extra money would go into the general scholarship fund.
I see.
And like I say, we have a good number of our students that are taking the full gamut of our classes that are scholarship students, receiving, somewhere around 70% of their tuition through financial aid that we provide.
I see. Okay. Good to know. All right. So along with this video, like I said, there'll be a link to the website, and there'll be a link to direct you how to be able to contribute if you're able to contribute. And very soon there will also be links up on the website with the descriptions of the new classes that we'll be offering.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll have we'll have the contact information. We'll if for any questions, we'll provide a contact email or contact number along with those links. So I think those are all the questions that I had. So before I release you back into the wilds of Pennsylvania, what did you have anything else to add, Father? Any thoughts or
my house
wilderness?
Right? Yeah.
The wilds of inside your house outside your house?
In our house, right? Like because of the coronavirus, right? So yeah. Yeah. I shouldn't be smiling about that, but you can laugh or cry. So
right.
No, but we have to take this very, very seriously. And if anybody has any questions, I hope that I'm very approachable. So feel free to reach out. If either I or my wife can answer, she also works for the initiative, can answer any questions that people have. And if people have any suggestions for classes, the idea is to add classes on an ongoing basis. So for example, right now the government keeps changing itself, but what's been said is this is going to go on possibly for months or cyclically for months. Mm-hmm. So as that goes on, as the need continues, we will add, if let's say we go past 4 or 6 weeks and God forbid we're still in this quarantine situation and kids are not going to school, then we will add another set of classes. So we're creating a queue of teachers and classes, these short classes, and we will continue to cycle them through and add them on. So, so if anybody has any suggestions for those classes, please feel free to contact us as well with those suggestions. So, all right.
And that can pair up with those who would like to step forward and hopefully instruct for us and possibly instruct for us. If you, with their special, pair up with their specialties, they can offer suggestions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is very broad because it's not necessarily all academic. Like someone was asking me recently, could we have enrichment style classes like, ballet, right? And if the person's qualified and they present a persuasive way how to carry that out over the internet, then by all means, as you may or may not imagine, I don't have any experience with ballet myself. But I can coordinate. I have people that I know that can assess whether or not we can actually pull this off.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about, of course.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time, Father. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Vasilios, for the interview and for the great conversation.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Have a wonderful night, and hopefully people will be in touch.
Yes, absolutely. God bless you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.